There should be a lot of smiles on the faces of Blue Jay fans today as one of the most important series of the year begins tonight against the Tampa Bay Rays. The Blue Jays fresh off a hugely successful road trip. They played 10, they won 8 of them, and they welcome a team they are jockeying for position with, the Tampa Bay Rays. The push is on as September gets deeper and deeper. This is going to be a lot of fun over the next couple of days. And we're so glad you've joined us here on Blue Jays Central. I'm Jamie Campbell. Joe Siddall is back from vacation in beautiful Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. The roof just opened. The fans are starting to find their seats, and the Blue Jays are ready to go. 5 games in 4 days against Tampa Bay. Let's take a look at the standings. It's like we'll do this every single day, the way things are going, as the Blue Jays sit behind the Mariners and the Rays by half a game. The cushion now over Baltimore, as you can see, is 5.5. Now, let's examine the remaining opponents for each of the teams in wild card contention. And let's remember one thing, and Joe, you know this so well, any team can beat another at any time. So yes, the Mariners have lots of games against Oakland and the Angels, but remember, it was the Angels who rolled into town here and swept the Blue Jays in 3, so anything is possible. And regardless of who they're going to face in the next few days, that trip they just came off of was significant. So let's get coverage begun of this game by sending it down to field level. Here's Hazel May.
Well, Jamie and Joe, Sunday's result certainly wasn't the one the Blue Jays had hoped would end a grueling 10-game road trip. But manager John Schneider said, look, overall, he's very pleased with the way his team has performed. He said they came to work every single day and competed, and then said he looks forward to what he described was an exciting week at home. Yes, it will be exciting, but it will also be a season-defining stretch at home. But the Blue Jays do return to Rogers Center, playing some really good baseball and riding this wave of momentum. An 8-2 road record over those 10 games. That is the best record in the American League in that span. But before they see the Baltimore Orioles this weekend, first up, it's the 11th meeting between the Rays and the Blue Jays. As you all know, these two teams have played really close games, but it is the Rays who hold the slight edge in the season series. This 5-game head-to-head matchup, way too close to give one team a big advantage. The Rays have scored 5 more runs than the Jays, and Tampa's pitching just slightly better with a combined ERA of 3.48. Ross Stripling, for one, said these next couple of series will be telling.
I mean, this is why you play, to be in big games in September and playing to get into the postseason and make a run in October, right? So this is where we expected to be, and now we find ourselves here and playing good baseball. So, I think we're excited for these games, 5 games in 4 days against the Rays, and then another big series against Baltimore, where hopefully we can put them in the rearview mirror and, feel like we can come out here and compete with anybody and keep the momentum going into, obviously a huge stretch to finish the season.
You want to take it one day at a time. I know that sounds very cliche, but you want to really focus on trying to win each game. You want to understand and enjoy the magnitude of this series and the weeks that are ahead, but at the same time play your game. So I think we're in a good spot right now. I think having some veteran guys helps, and I think guys are starting to click at the right time.
Obviously, it's a big week. It's a big month. The next couple of weeks, we got a tough little schedule ahead of us, and especially this homestand. We got 5 games in 4 days or whatever it is, and it's September. Guys are tired, but we're gonna let adrenaline take over and just kind of go out there and play and take care of business.
Every game from here on out is a really big one. We need every win we can get, so just continue to come to the field and competing as best we can and leaving it all out there, and whatever happens, happens, but like our chances if we do that.
Every man in that clubhouse knows what this team can do, knows what we're capable of. I think at the end of the day, we've spent the entire season in a playoff spot. We know what we're capable of. We know what we want to do, and if we can keep winning series, we're going to be in a really good spot.
We're in a really good spot as we welcome MLB insider Shi Davidi. So obviously a lot at stake this week, but in recent weeks, the focus has been on staying in the moment. So if you're the Blue Jays, how do you go about doing that?
It's really interesting, Hazel. Talking to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. about that just before the game. asking him, how are you handling this differently this September compared to September ago? And he said, essentially, you have to make sure that you're not treating this game any different than any other, because every game is important, and if you're suddenly changing your approach, well, that's not going to be helpful. And I really like the way Matt Chapman ended up putting it. It says, you can't force yourself upon the game. You got to play it the way it's going to be played. So I think for the Blue Jays, not overemphasizing this, not putting extra pressure, just playing like you normally do. The one thing I would say that did see a little bit different with some of the pregame prep that went into this, a lot of bunting practice during BP, some emphasis on fielding, catchers being able to pick throws from the outfield and apply a tag, real attention to detail. So maybe there's a bit more emphasis on that. But from a mental standpoint, I think the Blue Jays want to stay exactly where they've been in the past couple of weeks.
Well, the Blue Jays certainly hope Bo Bichette stays exactly the way he is in these next couple of weeks. Congratulations to Bo. He picks up the Player of the Week award for the American League, 500 average, 5 home runs, 13 RBIs, and an over 1,100 slugging percentage. He's just unconscious there at the plate, but the way he posts, Shai, really gets overlooked here.
Very much, Hazel, and he's played in 137 of the 139 games the Blue Jays have played to this point. Obviously, that's going to go up again tonight, and that level of consistency, being available to your teams, being able to take the field, that's really important, and that's really part of the backbone of this team. But the other thing that's really impressive is that he's found the best version of himself at a point in time where you're most fatigued in the season, right? This is when you're really struggling to get to the finish line a lot of times, and he's been able to make some adjustments, been able to find his swing, being able to lock into an approach that's really helped carry this team at clearly a very opportune time. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. One of the things Bo said that I thought was intriguing is that you're sort of numb to the pain at this point. You're just pushing through. Him, a lot of his teammates are doing that right now, and they really have to find ways to be at their best when the games are most important.
Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I didn't have a great road trip. I sat down with him earlier today. You'll hear my conversation with Vladdy and try to find out what is going on with him. But he says, Jamie and Joe, he's in a really good spot. More on our chat a little later on Blue Jay Central. Guys?
That should be interesting, Hazel. He's actually on a bit of a hit streak right now, and yet you don't really notice it because there's not a whole lot of damage going on. Let's look at this matchup tonight as Jose Barrios, who was only used once on that trip, he pitched a quality start in Game 2 of the doubleheader in Baltimore, goes up against right-hander Cooper Criswell, who comes up from AAA. He was claimed off waivers from the Angels in July and designated for assignment 3 days later. So we'll discuss with Joe whether or not the Blue Jays should be licking their chops. With guys like this, you just don't know. First of all, explain why Trevor Richards opened yesterday. What was the significance of that?
Anytime you can manipulate your rotation to face your divisional opponents, where these games really mean 2 games, you do it. And they go back all the way to the beginning of this road trip when they played in Pittsburgh, and Richards opened that weekend. They had a day off before that trip. They were able to change things around a little bit, obviously looking forward to this week at home. And when you can do that, you've got your big boys all set up this week. And I think the key name to look at right here is Manoah. Game 1 of the doubleheader tomorrow. You hope to get good Barrios tonight, but with Manoah going Game 1, we expect to see Mitch White. Could it be an opener? Possibly. Could he start? Yes. But after Barrios tonight and Manoah tomorrow in Game 1, John Schneider will know what he has based on his bullpen setup. So that will be great if you can get through tomorrow night somehow, because we know that 5th spot's been just a nightmare for the Blue Jays, but it is for every team. Nobody's 5 deep. You got Stripling and Gosman to close this out. If you can get the good Barrios tonight, this team is 4 deep in their rotation going into the postseason, hopefully, if Jose's on track.
Kevin Cash's bullpen is exhausted. So how does that impact the Blue Jays starting tonight?
Well, you're facing Cooper Criswell. It's his 2nd Major League Baseball game. Now, they'll have all kinds of information on this kid. They've scouted him. They'll know what the fastball does. They'll know it's not a high-velocity fastball. They know he's got a slider. But the big thing here to me is when you're facing a guy you have not seen, don't overthink it. Just know what the movement on the fastball does, what his slider does. He's probably only going to be there for 3 or 4 innings. John Schneider talked about that today. That's kind of been his track record, what he has been doing. So don't use your first at-bat and gain information for the next one. There might not be one.
He had excellent numbers in AAA against right-handed batters. There are 7 of those in the Blue Jays lineup. We'll address that when we continue as the Blue Jays wear red tonight, a Monday evening with the red jerseys, and Jose Barrios going up against Tampa Bay. Should present some intrigue. Stay with us here on Blue Jays Central.